Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Lab. We're a couple of realtors in the Austin, Texas area, and we're bringing to you today, what are we talking about? Title? We're talking about title insurance. I think that's one of those things when people are buying or selling property, they don't necessarily fully understand. And so we've got a guest that we've brought on who will help us delve into the title depths. But first, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves, starting with, I guess I'll say, go by Ian of Austin, everyone on the internet. Thanks for joining today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liberty Walker with Realty Austin, the Lisa Munoz team. And I'm so excited about today's topic because I have always had a lot of questions around title insurance, title policies, and the best way to explain things to my clients when they have questions. So, hey, Sanjeev. All right, next up. Gosh, why do I always...
What's up, Sanjeev? JJ Tolentino with the Next Level Property Group at KW Realty. Excited to talk about title. Let's make sure you get clean title policies on your properties out there. And I will pass it on to our guest, Marley.
Welcome, Marley. It looks like you're having fun coming to you live from Valente Beach today.
From Valente Beach, right outside of Austin, Texas, I'm Marley Ketchum with Capital Title.
Thank you for joining us and being here today, Marley.
Marley, we appreciate you taking the time. Why are you at Valente? You've got something going on, right?
I do. My 7-year-old son is at his baseball banquet, and he won the most improved, so we had to come accept that work.
Very cool. Well, thank you for taking the time.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that we give people some serious value here. And I think we should start off with saying, why is getting a title policy important in the state of Texas? Can you help us answer that?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we are a third disinterested party, so it does get somebody involved that is not looking out for the benefit of either the buyer or the seller or their agents. It's a neutral party, so that we can help kind of de-escalate any situations, handle all of the money so that nobody feels like they've been cheated. But I just want to emphasize the importance of getting a title insurance policy is because we do the research. So you were to just go to a real estate attorney and have them file a warranty deed. Well, they're not doing the research to break it down and find out who is actually currently an owner in the property and are they able to sell that property to you legally. So it could end in a bad situation, as I was telling Liberty right before we came on. Just say that there's like a divorce situation. And
So before you jump into your story, I just want to put a little bit of context there. So am I correct at thinking that if you're paying cash for a home, you're not required to pay for that title insurance, correct? You're only required to get a title policy if you're getting a loan.
That is absolutely correct. You are only required if you are getting a loan on the property. Not just because I sell title insurance, because I thought before I worked in title insurance that I did not want that I didn't want to pay that extra. It's a percentage of the sales price. So average sales policy or average title policy here in Austin right now is about $2,000 to $4,000. And that's all.
What was that? $2,400?
$2,000 to $4,000.
$2,000 to $4,000, and it's based on the price of the home of what it costs. Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I want to piggyback off of that. I think a lot of people, when they're looking through the contracts, they don't understand that the title policy cost is part of the negotiation of a contract. So if you're a buyer submitting an offer and you offer to pay that cost, that's what that means. You're offering to pay the $2,000 to $4,000 or so toward that title policy. And so that's a very strong negotiation tactic when you're submitting an offer for a contract, and also relevant for the seller to review.
That's a really
That's one
good
of the
point.
bigger closing costs.
Yep, absolutely, and especially in this market right now, that can make or break a deal.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
usually the title policy would be something that the seller would cover. I mean, that's what we usually would see. But in this market, we're definitely seeing buyers choose to pay for the title policy to give them more of a competitive edge so that the seller can net more.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yep. It's all depending on the
it
market.
it often ends up being at the net cost to the seller is what the listing agents want to share with their clients, right? And so that this is part of that net cost. Another thing that you had mentioned, Marley, was the title company is a third disinterested party who handles the money. So recently, or fairly recently, there was a change in our Texas contracts that says title companies will now handle the option and the earnest money. So that's a new change, and it's kind of it kind of causes a little bit of upset because it used to be where sellers, when they were receiving an offer, they would get option money in their pocket, and now it goes to the title companies in the state of Texas.
And I do that because it's only one place I have to drive to.
I like it too. I don't want to touch anybody else's money.
Yeah.
Right? Like my job is to make sure that the buyer and the seller have a solid, well understood negotiation. I'm really just an experienced, very experienced facilitator and negotiator, right? I'm not the one that's buying it. I'm not the one that's selling it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So Marley, can you do us a favor and tell us, sorry, it's getting a little loud. One second.
Sorry.
Can you do us a favor and tell us what's the difference between some of the title companies? Why would somebody choose, let's say, one title company over another? People need to understand that too.
Okay, perfect. So we are actually regulated by the state of Texas on our fees as far as the policy goes. So that's not going to set anybody apart. So if you're looking for a better deal, that's not going to happen. The reason that you see people picking their preferred title company is solely based on relationship. They know that, just for example, my closer that I typically sell, Bobby Lockett, will pick up the phone on Saturday if you have a question. We'll pick up the phone at 7 o'clock at night if you have a question. She doesn't just work 9 to 5. So that gives her kind of a competitive edge against the other people around us. Because I do know there are teams that work 9 to 5 and they go home. But we don't function like that over at Capital because we understand that y'all's business hours are our business hours. So you're not just going to have a question between 9 to 5.
I mean, you're at a park and you're taking your time to have this conversation with us. That's a testament to your willingness to participate at all hours and times. And I thank you for that.
And I want to interject one thing that I thought of. In the contract that we work on, draft for our clients, there's a place where we can actually put the preferred title company. And so, usually in this market right now, we are letting the sellers choose what that title company is. But if a buyer has a good, close relationship with a title company, they can definitely, step up and say something. If you do, you might as well try. You never know if that is going to work out or not. So if you have a title company that you've worked with that you love, tell your agent to put that preferred title company in the spot.
Absolutely. 100%.
JJ, you're making that face like you've got a thought.
I was thinking about how we're talking about negotiating all these different terms on the contract, who's paying for title policy, the actual title company. And I was thinking, Marley, put it in context, like what's a settlement statement, or explain to the viewers how title works with all that and how that comes out to the consumers.
Okay, so the settlement statement is us being open and honest with every single penny of your transaction, of your money, and where it is going. There will be no questions once you see your settlement statement, how much your home warranty costs, how much the loan amount is, how much your agent is getting paid, how much the escrow is going to be at the end of the day. So it's very important that settlement statement is the thing.
Yeah, and you'll see credits and debits on the selling side and the buying side, and throughout the transaction, you might have a repair amendment or stuff like that, and the title company will help track that and make sure that those actually have been put in their appropriate spots, because we're all human. Things do happen. So it's better to have a lot of eyes on there checking and making sure that all the right money goes to the right person.
I think that's huge. The date tracking is responsibility of really all parties, because that's one way that buyers can back out of a contract, use dates to back out of a contract, or even I guess sellers can do that too, right? If there were non-performance. So Broderick says title is vital, which leads
I
me to
like
ask
that.
I know, right? It leads
Haven't
me
heard
to
that
ask the
before.
question, Marley. Can you share a story with us of where you've heard that title was absolutely vital, and they didn't heed that warning?
Absolutely. So here north of Austin, there is a town called Georgetown. So if you're not all from the Austin area, there was a community in Georgetown. You can Google it. It was a huge deal on the news. That an entire community was sold by a builder, by a developer, to people when they didn't even own the property. And
Wow.
so everyone in that neighborhood who had a title insurance policy was covered, and the title insurance, took on that responsibility because either the due diligence wasn't done or there was a hiccup in the title search. And so they made sure that the people who were living in the homes actually own their homes. Now, unfortunately, the ones that purchased their homes cash, I don't think there were that many in that community, but since they did not have a title insurance policy, that property was not theirs. Even some of them had lived there for 20 plus years.
So in 20 years, they found out that they didn't actually own the home. The rights were refuted.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
Ownership.
such a scary thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So even if you're paying cash for your home, a title policy, around $2,000 to $4,000 to make sure that you're actually the owner, the rightful owner of that property. I mean, seems like a no-brainer to me, guys.
I think what happens is a lot of people that are investors, especially, want to save as much, net as much money as they can, or someone who doesn't really understand like the true value of it. They want to save as much money as they can, and so they're going to nickel and dime themselves into a bad situation. And that's where you have people that try to sell the houses on their own, or try to, go without a title policy. It's insurance. It's like a warranty on a car. It's like a warranty on a house. If you can get someone to cover it in case there is fault, you want them to cover it. It's like a roof. You have homeowners insurance. So if your roof goes out, if you have hail damage, you can either pay $16,000 to replace the roof out of your own pocket, or you can pay a deductible. Right? So this is protection. And it goes deeper than that. It goes to mineral rights. Mm-hmm. Right? Isn't that stuff reviewed at the title company?
It is reviewed. Typically on our lots and blocks here in Austin, the mineral rights were locked up years and years and years ago. But once you get out to West, East Texas, where they are still drilling for oil and different minerals, you will definitely see that being a huge factor in the searches.
And this is what you call a title report. You go to the title company and they do that report and make sure there's mineral rights here. These liens have been paid off, right?
Yes, sir. That those liens have been paid off.
Do you guys pull like restrictions and stuff like that? Like if there's like something in the deed that says like only a one-story house can be built here. Do you guys bring that up during that title?
Yes, we sure do. So in the very beginning, a negotiable thing on your contract is how many days we have to get the commitment over to the agent and their clients. And so when that commitment comes out, there are different portions. It's A and C, and what's important to you. And all those restrictions are located in Schedule B of the commitment. So how we send it out is it's all completely hyperlinked. So instead of just getting a document that's 7,000 pages that's overwhelming, you can click each individual one and see if it's something that pertains to your situation.
I love it. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I was always curious about that. Like, do you ever get like a physical copy of the whole policy to like hold on to as a homeowner?
You absolutely do. 30 days is the longest that we are allowed to take to send the policy to the new homeowner. So you should receive that within 30 days of closing.
So I guess I have mine somewhere. Is that something?
And sometimes people don't understand, like when they're writing their address in, and they don't write the proper address in, so we don't actually send the physical copy to it, and that's okay because we have documentation from I guess you've been open for 17 years. So we've got all that documentation. So if you ever need anything, you can always just reach out to one of us and we can get it for you.
Awesome.
That's huge, especially when it comes to things like surveys, right? So if you buy a house and you have a survey from when you purchase the home, the title company actually retains that information. I personally, when I'm at closing, I ask the title company in front of my buyer or seller permission to retain the survey, and then they'll send it to me. But that allows me to, when the buyer's like, hey, I'm buying another house and I want to sell this one. Do you have a survey? I'm like, let me see. Did the title company ever send it to me? Because otherwise, it was your survey, not mine to hold on to. But I do as well. So, okay, I wanted to mention this because this popped up with Broderick. And for anybody that's listening on Spotify or Google Podcasts or any of those other services, Broderick says, people don't realize how important your title policy or company is until there's an issue. And that's the same as reviews or anything else. People don't complain or realize how important things are until there's a problem. And so that's interesting. So I'm going to bring up another question. Liberty, you want to read this one?
Yes.
Luis.
So Luis Mesa pops in with a question saying, is there one title, or what's the difference between buyer's title versus seller's title, or even lender's title?
Perfect. Well, the seller is not getting a title policy from us. Only the buyer and the lender is getting a title policy. The seller is simply providing us their information so that we can do a fact check and make sure that they are actually in ownership of the property. Before this, we were chatting about a situation where we had a husband and wife split, and the wife was trying to sell the home. And since we had gathered all of the proper information, we were able to find out that there was a husband involved. So we had to get him to agree and sign in and join the sale. So that's why. So anyways, that kind of went off on a tangent. But that the seller is not in the title policy at all. But let's see, I'm trying to read the question down here.
Buyer's title, seller's title, lender's title.
Perfect. Okay. So the buyer, we're protecting the buyer. We're protecting the fact that you do truly own that property if something were to happen. Now, on the lender side, it's basically the same thing. We just piggyback because the lender wants to know whenever they are loaning money to an individual what that is. Who's going to be in ownership? Are they lending money to the proper people? Even the restrictions come in right there too, because if you build something, if you're in an area that says anything under 5,000 square feet and you do a property that's 5,100 square feet, your house goes into foreclosure, the lender now has your home. Now they're going to have to tear it down or do whatever they have to do to go through that. So they are also protected on that end.
Wow.
So just to visit that again, so you see these two closing costs, right? On the settlement statement, there's one for the buyers that protects the buyer's situation. Okay, and I'm asking this. And then for the lender's title policy, the buyer pays that cost. And is that insurance for them or the lender? Like, how do you think about that?
So it's not an additional, we're not necessarily doing two large $2,000 to $4,000 policies. It's just an additional $100 that's protecting the lender as well as the buyer.
But that's one of those fees. When people are looking at a title policy, they start seeing fees, right? Yeah. Fees to register with the county, fees to do this, fees to do that. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. Signing fee. Attorney fee. Can you explain, because I have a lot of people that are relocating, let's say from Chicago, like the Illinois area, or for California or from another state where they just do attorneys. They don't even have title companies. Can you kind of explain the difference, how you operate versus an attorney?
Absolutely.
Or an attorney state?
Yeah, in those states, they actually, even though they're closing with attorneys, they still do title searches. So the attorney is completely separate from the title company, but they are still paying someone to do those title searches. I know I'm not really familiar with the laws from other states, but I've got many friends from Washington and Colorado that work for attorneys that take care of that. But they do still reach out. So those fees are still there. It looks a little bit different.
So I'm going to share a story, and you guys tell me what you think about this. I had someone selling a house and they were married. The house was gifted to them from their parent, and the parent was deceased, and they had a brother that was in jail.
Yeah.
What? So
Yeah.
can you talk through some of that, Marley? I mean, I can share basically the story. It was a cluster. Can you talk through like how liens, how maybe like taxes and encumbrances work with the title search?
Yeah, first, can you say what an encumbrance is? Like, is that like a physical thing? I mean, what is an encumbrance?
That's a really great question for one of my attorneys.
Okay.
I like that.
I think encroachment
We'll
is
have them on
physical.
next time. Okay.
But the original question was,
I was all over the place. I think the original question was, can you just explain, like, when people find fees or things that are owed for that are like attached to the home, how does that work out? If somebody's selling a house, for example, they've got HOA liens or what have you.
absolutely. So whenever we're pulling that document in the very beginning, the title commitment that I was talking about earlier, and as I said, there is Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule C. Schedule C, I always say, remember C means clear. And so on that Schedule C, that is where you will see every single lien that is attached to the property. And so we make sure we will not close until we clear every single one of those to make sure that the buyer doesn't have anything attached. Because if there is a child support lien or anything still attached to that property, before that new owner can go to sell it if they choose to, that has to be cleared up. So then they're going to end up being liable for it unless it was filed after you got your title insurance policy. And then we will cover it at that point.
Boom. Yeah. And so for Liberty, I think an encroachment is a physical, right? This is like real estate classes.
Encroachment is a physical, and encumbrance is like a lien.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thing. So
yeah, that's more like legal stuff.
So like sometimes like if you have somebody come out and do construction on your home, you never pay them, they can put a construction lien. That would be an encumbrance. And an encroachment would be a thing encroaching.
Yes.
Okay, I remember now.
Our terms are coming back out in this title conversation here.
I mean, I think that's important because what'll happen is you'll see all that sort of stuff. If you try reading through the Schedule B, it's written by attorneys. What are you going to read? Like, really? But it's important to understand and then through it too, right?
Yeah.
Schedule Bs are pretty confusing to me.
So please do have your attorney. If you have an attorney, have them help you walk it through because it's a lot. And as realtors, we only know, like, our expertise is like negotiations, making offers, guiding you through. But when it comes to like those detailed, details in your title policy, that is something that you need to speak with a lawyer about. Definitely.
Yes. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And we do have attorneys on staff at Capital Title.
Really? That's so great.
We can't represent.
That's actually a difference between.
But we can break them down.
That's awesome. And so if a client had a specific question about something that came up in the Schedule B, then they could say, "Hey, Marley, is this something that I could speak with one of your attorneys about?"
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good.
Would you say, like, what's your take on the title company and closing at a title company versus with the closing attorney? Like, is the title company backed with more insurance? Is it safer? How do you perceive that?
So, to be completely honest, the way that it works here in Texas, most of your title attorneys are associated with the title company. So you're still going to...
Yeah, it's like title company, legal name, or legal lawyer firm. Yeah.
Yeah. So you may end up paying a little bit more because you get to sit across the table from an attorney that still cannot represent you. But they'll be able to ask your question or answer your question sitting at the table, which is a great perk. But we've got the same opportunities at Capital because I think we have 15 attorneys on staff that we can pick up the phone and we can get hold of someone if you have questions.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I've had a lot of people closing remote. In fact, I have a few remote closings next week. and I can you take a minute to just explain how that can work if somebody lives in another state or they're just not able to make it physically to the closing, how that works across borders?
Absolutely. So we have notary companies that we keep on our speed dial because especially these days we've got a lot of people moving into Texas, but the buyers are doing, or the sellers are doing lease back, so they're not quite here yet. So we've got notary companies that are nationwide that we send out. They are just notaries, so most of the time they're not going to be answering any questions, but sorry, I'm on background noise right now. But throughout
That's
the
Texas
closing,
for you.
That's right.
I feel like I should be at the lake. I'm like, what am I doing?
They're towing that boat.
It's hot outside. I need to get on one of those boats.
But throughout the closing, our escrow officer still blocks out that full hour or 30 minutes, depending on if it's the buyer or the seller, so that you can phone her in, Zoom her in at any time, him or her, and at any time and get any questions answered. But we are available to close.
Let me piggyback on this will be my last question for you. But I have a client who we're actively making offers for that plans on going to France and will be in France for like 3 to 4 weeks. Can she sign overseas?
So that does get a little tricky whenever it is overseas. It can happen. Your client, if they want or need to close during that time that they're out of the country, they will have to find a consulate. That way they can still get a U.S. notary on that paper.
And the consulates at the U.S. embassies over there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the embassies are busy.
No, thank you.
The embassies are very busy. You usually have to book them.
Yeah, you
Well,
got
I'll
to
tell
get
you
ahead of that
something.
appointment.
If I'm in France or any other country, I'm not going to want to. I mean, I guess if it's a house, maybe, but in most cases, I'm on vacation to, I don't want to have to run to the consulate.
Your vacay. You have to put everything on hold to handle business. I'm gonna throw one quick question in. I know we got a couple minutes because the term escrow gets thrown around a lot. Like I'm in escrow. How would you explain escrow to the viewers out there?
So escrow is our team that does all of the research, does all of the communicating between the buyer, the seller, and their agent. Not to confuse with your escrow account at your lending company. We get that a lot whenever it comes time to pay taxes. We get phone calls from the buyers asking them if we still have their money to pay their taxes and their insurance. And that is a complete misconception. I don't know why they get it. It is. Not
well, it's really a holding.
Escrow is a state of mind. Okay.
Well, so that brings me to my last question of the day. Taxes. I get this question a lot about, hey, I'm closing on, let's say, May 5th. How do taxes work between the seller and the buyer? How does that show up on a settlement statement? That is a forever question. I get it all the time.
That is a great question. So we collect the taxes. If you're closing on May 5th, we collect the taxes out of the seller's proceeds from January 1st up to May 5th. And we give that to the buyer as a credit on the settlement statement. So we're not actually giving them cash. We are not actually handing it to their loan officer. They are getting it as a credit. So that is very important to know because sometimes, if your lender is not collecting your escrow and keeping it on your own, then they come back to us and they say, okay, you collected $3,000 from our seller in May, where is that $1,000? And we have to point it out to them where on the settlement statement they were credited for that.
And is it my understanding that since we pay taxes in arrears, you don't know what you're going to owe until the following year? So how do we know that the seller is getting debited the correct amount of money?
Mm-hmm.
So that is a disclosure that we do at the end. We base everything off of an estimate. We do our very, very, very best to estimate it correctly based on what we have seen in the past years. However, if it is a huge difference, that is something that in that disclosure says that you need to go back and have a conversation with the seller's agent to figure out if it's a larger credit thing.
I would not look forward to that conversation, Marley.
Oh no, you're like
that sounds a little.
Yeah, most of the
Makes
time, most of the time it doesn't happen because it's very minute. Very. It's not worth getting.
like
a small
$50 or
fee.
something over the course of a year.
Okay.
All right, well, so we've been on for 30 seconds. Let's give our parting thoughts. Liberty, you have any parting thoughts?
I would just say that in my experience, I've dealt with several different title companies and they are not created equally. So please, sellers and buyers, make sure that you do interview your title company as well and make sure that they have all the technologies, the apps that you want to use, or are they communicating with you the way that you want to be communicated with during this transaction for everybody's sake? Because we are all working together as a team, even if the title company is a third party. Sellers, buyers, title companies must work together to get it done. So do your due diligence and check them all out. And Capital Title seems pretty cool. So I'm going to be calling you guys.
Yes.
What about you, JJ?
I actually closed this house with Capital Title, and I had a pleasant experience.
Oh, great.
Make me and Marley relatable.
Guys,
So-
JJ.
Yeah, I think it's just super important to have good communication with your agent, with the title company, because it's smooth. Because even that last question with the taxes, it took me a few deals like to close to really like understand, what was going on there. And there's a lot of different aspects when you look at a settlement statement. So, team up, call any of us, call Marley, and we're here for your real estate questions and answers. And if you're tuning in, you're in the right place, and we're here for you.
I love it. Marley, what do you have to say? Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
If you have
Marley.
any questions, feel free. Reach out, give me a call.
I'll post your contact information and your email at the bottom of the chat. Sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds
Okay,
beautiful.
and then,
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
my parting words are title companies are incredible and it's necessary. I think title is vital was the quote. And I have
Title
had
is vital.
really bad experiences in the past. And then I've had very pleasant experiences. In fact, I have a closing that's happening like right down the street as I'm sitting here being able to educate and have a conversation with everybody. And so to have something kind of run smoothly and you have that trust and that faith in the company is hard to replace. And so I thank you and every title company out there that does a fantastic job. And I thank all the agents that coach their clients well to share that same experience. So everyone, take care. See you next week.
Bye.
Awesome,
Thank
Marley.
you so much.
Bye.